James had always considered himself a lucky man. At 35, he had a steady job as an accountant, a comfortable home in the suburbs, and a beautiful wife, Samantha. They had been married for 7 years, and while their life wasn't a fairy tale, it was steady, or so James thought. They met in college. Samantha was a lively, talkative girl who lit up every room, and James was a quiet, thoughtful type who always stayed in the background. Somehow, they balanced each other. She pushed him to try new things. He grounded her when life felt chaotic. Over the years, they built a life together. Sunday brunches, weekend movie nights, and annual vacations to small beach towns. But about 6 months ago, James started noticing little changes. Samantha began spending more time on her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't explain. She had a new perfume, strong and sweet, that James had never smelled before. Her work outfits became more stylish, her makeup more polished. She even started staying late at the office more often, saying she was catching up on projects. At first, James brushed it off. Everyone goes through phases, he told himself. But then came the business trips. Samantha had never traveled much for work before, but suddenly, every month there was somewhere she needed to go: conferences, client meetings, team-building retreats. The night before her latest trip, she was packing in the bedroom while James sat on the bed, watching her fold blouses and dresses. "Chicago this time, right?" he asked casually. She nodded without looking at him. 3 days. Shouldn't be too bad. I'll be back before you even miss me. She smiled, but her eyes avoided his. The next morning, she left early, suitcase in hand, dressed in a sharp black blazer. James kissed her goodbye at the door, breathing in that unfamiliar perfume one more time. He watched her get into the taxi, waving at him through the window. When he went back into the kitchen, he saw something lying on the counter: her boarding pass. The words on it froze him in place. Miami International Airport. Miami? Not Chicago. A knot formed in his stomach. Miami wasn't even connected to her company's work. And who goes to Miami for a last-minute conference in the middle of January? James spent the next hour pacing around the house before finally grabbing his car keys. He drove to the airport, heart pounding. If he was wrong, he'd feel foolish. But if he was right, he didn't even want to think about it. At the airport, he scanned the departure board. Flight 762 to Miami, Gate 14. He walked quietly toward it, keeping to the edges of the crowd. And there she was, Samantha, standing near the gate, holding hand with a man James had never seen before. The man was tall, tanned, wearing a casual linen shirt. He leaned in and kissed her cheek. She laughed, a laugh James hadn't heard in months. The kind of laugh that belonged to someone in love. James felt his chest tighten, his world tilting. Every instinct screamed at him to confront them right there. But instead, he pulled out his phone and began recording. He zoomed in, capturing her smile, her hand in his, their bodies leaning into each other like a couple with no secrets. They boarded the plane together. James stood there long after the gate closed, staring at the empty hallway. For the next 3 days, he didn't sleep much. He kept replaying the video, staring at the way she looked at that man. It wasn't casual. It wasn't innocent. It was love, or at least the kind of infatuation that destroys marriages. When Samantha returned, she was glowing. She had a tan on her skin and a delicate necklace around her neck, one James had never seen before. "How was Chicago?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "Oh, fine. Busy," she replied quickly, placing her suitcase in the corner. "We hardly had time to do anything fun." That night, over dinner, James set his phone on the table. He tapped the screen, and the video began to play. Samantha's fork froze midair. The sound of her laughter at the airport filled the silence between them. Her eyes widened. "James, I can explain." "No," he said quietly. "You already did. In Miami." Her lips trembled, but James didn't stay to watch. He stood, grabbed his coat, and walked out the door into the cold night. For the first time in months, the weight on his chest felt lighter. The marriage was over, but so was the lie. James stepped into the cold night air, the weight of betrayal pressing down on him. He didn't know where he was going, only that he couldn't stay in the same house with her. He drove aimlessly for over an hour before pulling into a quiet motel on the outskirts of town. For the next few days, Samantha sent him dozens of messages. "Please talk to me. It's not what you think. I made a mistake, but I still love you." James didn't reply. He kept replaying the scene at the airport, and each time it cut deeper. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized he needed answers, not for her sake, but for his own peace of mind. On the fourth day, James agreed to meet her at a small coffee shop away from a neighborhood. She arrived looking nervous, her eyes red as if she hadn't slept. "James," she began, "I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth. His name is Daniel. We met at a marketing seminar months ago. It started as friendship, but it became something more." James stared at her. "And Miami?" She hesitated. "He asked me to go with him for a few days. I told myself it was just a break from reality, but I know it was wrong." Her voice cracked, and for a brief moment, James almost believed her tears. But then he remembered the way she had laughed with Daniel, the way she had held his hand without a hint of guilt. "I could forgive a mistake," James said quietly. "But this wasn't a mistake. This was planned. You lied, you covered it up, and you enjoyed every second of it." Samantha reached across the table, but James pulled his hand away. "I'm filing for divorce," he said, "and I don't want to hear from you again." She froze, tears streaming down her face. But James stood and walked out, leaving her behind for good. That night, as he packed his things from the house, James felt something strange, not just sadness, but relief. He knew healing would take time, but he also knew this. He'd rather face life alone than live with someone who could betray him so easily. Months passed since the divorce papers were signed. James had moved to a new apartment downtown, a place filled with sunlight and silence. The first few weeks were hard. The empty space reminded him of Samantha's laughter, her voice in the kitchen, the way she used to sit beside him on the couch. But slowly he started to heal. He threw himself into his work, picked up photography, something he had once loved but abandoned when his marriage consumed all his time. On weekends, he explored the city, capturing moments of strangers smiling, couples holding hands, children chasing pigeons. One afternoon, while shooting in the park, James met Emily, a travel blogger who had just moved to the city. She was warm, full of energy, and she listened without judgment. Their conversations felt effortless. And for the first time in a long while, James found himself smiling without forcing it. Meanwhile, Samantha's life was falling apart. Daniel had ended things with her just a month after James left. Her friends, most of whom were connected to James, had quietly distanced themselves. At night, she would scroll through James's new social media posts, the photos of him traveling, the candid smiles, and feel a pang of regret so deep it made her chest ache. One rainy evening, she sent him a message. "I miss you. I was stupid. Can we talk?" James saw it and ignored it. The next weekend, James and Emily went on a short road trip to the mountains. Standing at the edge of a cliff, looking at the horizon, James realized something powerful. The betrayal that once felt like the end of his life had actually given him a new beginning. He didn't forgive Samantha, but he was grateful in a strange way that she had shown her true colors before it was too late. For James, the chapter with her was over, and the rest of his story was just beginning.